Hi, I'm Mellisa Smith.
I'm Spencer Ziegler, and welcome to Data Lit, podcast for educators by educators, with some new theme music angelically sung by Eva and Indy Ziegler, Wake County students, if I do say so myself.
Yes, very cute, very cute.
Yes. And that's because we're doing our first annual Data Lit holiday extravaganza.
Oh, I love it. I love the name.
Can you say first annual when we have one?
Yes.
Yeah, we're just putting that out in the universe right now.
It could be said, because I've heard that before. Our first annual. That's how you let people know it's the first, and it'll be coming again.
Coming back. Yeah, and we got our hot cocoa.
Yeah.
A little cheers.
Cheers.
All right.
Clink, clink.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about data as gifts today. And let's start off. We wanted to show our appreciation for our listeners by thinking of a gift of data to some Wake County educators. So, Mellisa, what were you thinking? If you had a magic wand and you could give the gift of data to any of the educators, what would it be?
So if I had to give a data gift, mine would be a database portal that allowed any stakeholder, so whether you were a student, a teacher, a parent, a nurse, the superintendent, anybody, to be able to get on-time access to data, to any question that you had, and it would summarize the data, analyze the data, and then provide key next steps.
Ooh, I like that.
Bam.
Okay, let's make it happen. I like that. I feel like one of the recurring themes throughout doing this podcast is just the accessibility of data. Yeah. And be accessibility in terms of just being that literally in terms of like, can you get to the stuff there?
Yeah.
But also figuratively in terms of just, is it a hassle to do so? Or is the data presented in a way in which it's, not accessible? It's not something that people can digest. And I like how you talk about the different stakeholders there. Yeah,
I mean, in the work that we do, we are always encountering people that say, I want more data. I want to be able to see data. And people want to be able to snap their fingers and get it. And the reason why I thought of this too, from our recent podcast that we had around AI, I've been kind of wondering if we had an AI chatbot around data, what would it do? What would that look like? So that's kind of what got me thinking about this data GIF, right? That if it was a data chat, and maybe, over the holidays we can come up with something, but if it was a data bot, what would that do? What would it,
And it does raise the question, this has come up in some of our conversations about data visualization, of every time you move away from just giving people the raw data, just the really messy spreadsheet, you make it a little bit more clear with strong visualization or an AI chatbot or those kind of things there. But it does always require some discernment from the end users.
Correct.
To make sure that they're considering context, that they're being wary of like, did something get lost in the translation to this pretty 100% stacked bar chart or to this AI bot's summary,
Yeah. So when I was thinking about it, I thought about that too, because accessibility to me also means your ability to make sense of the data, right? There is an aspect of accessibility that has to do with your own understanding. Because if you don't understand it, then how are you able to access what the data is saying? And so can a robot do that?
Yeah, or at least, when you're looking for flights or going to your credit card, you're on the website and a chatbot will pop up. And at first they're like, can just the AI figure this out? But then at a certain point, it's just like, no, give me a real human.
Yep.
Like maybe there's a version, be it in terms of technology or just in terms of more metaphorically, as we start presenting more data in different ways, where we can kind of signal to the person like, hey, contact us when this just doesn't quite work anymore.
And then when I was thinking about this, I'm just like, this is a gift where I know it probably won't materialize, because then they'll always need us, right? So they'll always, because that's what our roles are in data research and accountability, right? To help people with accessibility, to help them make sense of the data, to help them see what the data says, what story is being told. So if we had a data bot, it would be us. And they don't need another us. They already have us.
Yeah, you and I are already essentially data robots. That does bring up, I'll drop in the show notes. There's a good interview with Dylan William, an educational researcher, talking about like future of education, like way down the line with AI and what it might mean. And he brought up an interesting point that when you're using AI, you kind of need a really high level of background information in order to kind of make sense and discern of like, hey, I forget, there's a phrase when the AI just starts kind of going off on its own and just making stuff up, you know? So you need a pretty high baseline of contextual information in order to be able to navigate these chatbots, you know?
To recognize when that happens.
Yeah, and I suppose that becomes the role of people like us or others within educational circles to make sure that these stakeholders, when they're engaging with data visualizations, AI, whatever it might be, that they have the contextual information so that they can be empowered to go back and forth with the chatbot. Yeah.
All right. So if you were Santa Claus.
Yeah. So I thought about it. I would love some kind of data for our teachers that encapsulates their value to their students, parents, and community. You know, that really captures just everything that they do on a day-to-day basis and makes them feel as appreciated as they ought to be.
That's a good one. I'm trying to imagine what that data...
Well, that's that's why it's in this. Because it's not so, like you and I are both parents. It's similar, like with kids. You're like, like I'm doing all this and they don't quite realize it, but down the road in an abstract way, I can. And probably you and I, if we're lucky, our kids will come to us and have a conversation when they're 20 or 30 or 40 or something like that and say like, hey, thanks, But teachers, that's a rare moment when you have those returning students, and it's one that does come years down the line, And not only that, in terms of just their value of just, giving so much of themselves and their time to these students, but also just to the community in terms of, and this might be something that is actually feasible, but it would be complicated. Is there a way to kind of quantify, even just financially, what a strong, empathetic teacher does for their community in terms of, every year, 20, 50, 100 kids, equipping them with the skills that then will generate more money and value to the kind of community there,
Yeah. That's so interesting, when I hear about quantify and, in a way, I know that EVOS feels, and people hear about it feels like the evil stepchild. But I wonder if that's kind of what their intent was, to sort of measure or put a value on the value of and I suppose instruction in the last year. Yeah.
Big caveat that EVOS is only looking at certain tests for certain subjects, all those kind of things there. But even so, would that give a starting point to then look more longitudinally and think about, can you trace then the impact that a strong teacher has over the years? And this is something that we're just starting to get a little bit better data in terms of what happens to our kids after they leave. Our high schools and even their colleges and stuff like that. So it'd be fascinating to be able to track some of those back to some of these teachers as a way to show appreciation, but also maybe as a way to justify but why teachers should get paid more,
I mean, I think there's definitely impact data, right? A lot of teachers are not going into this because they want to get paid more or because they want to have an impact on lives, right? I think a lot of teachers do this because they want to have an impact on lives. How does that get measured or looked upon? I don't think we've figured that out quite yet. So, I think, if we had a way of quantifying that, I think we come close. Mm-hmm. And maybe it's just the nature of human behavior that it's hard to it's hard to do something like that. But I think we come close. It's not perfect. But if we were able to quantify the impact that teachers have on our students' lives day in and day out, I think that'd be really appreciated.
Yeah, I think so. So we'll see. You and I will get working on these two.
We all
check back.
I'm seeing our audience are like, none of these gifts we can get. What kind of gifts?
Well, we also have a different set of gifts for our listeners, which is just weird and surprising data facts that you and I have found that we'll now share with our listeners. Okay. So
I got my first one.
Okay.
Right.
Lay it on me. What's your data?
So in which place is eating KFC a Christmas tradition?
Ooh. Okay.
A, Japan, B, South Korea, or C, Hong Kong?
I'm envisioning Colonel Sanders. I'm trying to step in wherever. I'm going to go with the old fallback of choosing B, South Korea.
No, it's Japan.
Japan.
Yeah. So when they introduced, and I can't remember the gentleman's name, first introduced KFC, that's what he had heard. They had it, and he had heard some, I guess, customers talking about how they missed having, Thanksgiving dinner and Christmas dinner and that kind of stuff. And so he decided he would create this Christmas KFC special. And he marketed it to folks that this is what folks were doing back in the U.S. And so all of a sudden it became a tradition of that's what Japanese people like to do. Oh. And eating KFC for Christmas is like a Japanese thing. I was just like,
Interesting. I find it fascinating, and this gets into like some like cognitive biases and stuff like that, of sometimes the assumption of what other cultures do doesn't actually match. Like you get that with, St. Patrick's Day being so different in America as opposed to like where it was. And then eventually it kind of comes back around. Or like Cinco de Mayo, like sometimes our distorted perception of what other cultures like. And we're like, oh, yeah, the old-fashioned American.
Right, because I thought of it, was like, we would never want to eat KFC for Christmas. Like, that would not be, like, if you're thinking of what things are we going to bring for Christmas dinner, KFC, or even, like, maybe fried chicken, but not, you're not thinking like that. Like, maybe it's homemade or something, but you're not thinking KFC. And I was just like, he was able to pull that off. And I mean, new and novel, and it just sort of stuck.
Okay.
All right, what's one you got?
I like that. Okay. Let's go with, I'm going to go with this one. So I found this in Scientific American. I'll drop in the show notes. So female named hurricanes are more deadly than hurricanes with like masculine coded names.
Really?
Yeah. So this is based on, they did a number of universities kind of paired up to look at a study, and they looked at the most damaging hurricanes in the United States during the 6 most recent decades. And the ones with relatively feminine names killed on average 42 people, almost 3 times higher than the 15 killed by hurricanes with relatively masculine names.
All right now, hurricanes.
Do you have, now the naming is random.
Yes.
Do you have any theories
as to why that happens?
Yeah.
My science teacher is going to kill me. Has it have to do anything with the La Nina?
No,
sort of weather patterns?
I don't think so, because it seems like they're randomly set in terms of like where they're picking the names. The theory is that it's this just kind of hazardous form of implicit bias of sexism, in that their idea was that people were perceiving the feminine coded ones as less risky and therefore resulting in less preparedness.
No way.
So systematically underestimating vulnerability to hurricanes with these kind of things there. So that one I saw.
When you hear like Hurricane Felix is coming, you're like, oh, let me prepare it. But if I hear Hurricane Daisy is coming, you're like, what's that going to do?
Yeah, in terms of this kind of implicit like bias that's in us. And that got me thinking about some like the equity focused practices and all these things about how in education, it's more than just this straightforward, like, here is the content, how can I relay? Yeah. There's a lot that goes into learning and instruction, and a lot of little things within us as educators might distort. So that kind of introspection is going to be important for anyone, but especially educators.
Huh. Now that's a good one. I never would have thought of that one.
I like that one. Okay, you got another?
Yes. All right. What's another good one? If Santa had 1 glass of milk and 1 cookie at every home he visits, how much milk and cookies do you think he would consume?
Okay. So essentially we're looking at this, was it like 8 billion people there, but not all of them celebrate Christmas. So 1 glass of milk and 1 cookie. So essentially you're saying like how many, but it's not people, it's households. I don't know, 2.5 billion.
22. 12.8 million gallons of milk.
Oh, gallons.
Of milk he would drink. And he would end up consuming 11.4 pounds, 11.4 million pounds of cookies.
Okay, so I have to, maybe I'll pop in with editing to do some math to see how close I was. Spencer here with a quick editing note. I was nowhere close. So if you say 16 cups in a gallon, if you say roughly each cookie is about an ounce, so about 16 cookies per pound, I was at like 125 million gallons and pounds. So yeah, I overshot it a bit. Okay, back to the show. Man, I hope he's working out the other 364 days. That's going to sit heavy.
Every vision that I see of Santa after Christmas, he's always on some beach laying out. So I don't know if laying out by itself
yeah, hopefully he's doing some laps on that beach. That's got to be tough, man. Yeah. Okay, that was good. I like that. Yeah, so mine weren't necessarily holiday themed, so I'm glad that you have those. What do you think is the deadliest animal?
The deadliest animal?
Yeah. Which animal results in the most human deaths?
Ooh.
And I chose this one specifically for you. And your debilitating fear of sharks. Is that where your head went first? Yeah. Sharks, only like 70 people per year. They're like way down the list.
What animal is killing people?
This one gets a little depressing.
Jellyfish?
Well, I like it. Mosquito.
No. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I should also know that coming from the Caribbean.
Yeah, malaria, West Nile, yellow fever, all that, like 725,000 deaths compared to the 70 of sharks. But one, just another that kind of that biases, the cognitive biases of perceived threats.
Dead. See, that's what I was thinking because I was like, tree frogs, is that like poisonous tree frogs? I was like, mosquito was I was not even thinking that.
And also an example of just how many of those are preventable. Like malaria, 619,000 deaths per year. That if
that is surprising me because I thought, given where we are in terms of advancements, I'm hoping that it's not having that kind of effect anymore.
Right, but sadly it is. And I was trying to think of some educational connections for some of these and think of just that sometimes our heads jump right to those the shark problems, which and for good reason, but oftentimes it might be the small
little mosquitoes,
preventable ones. Going back to probably even like biases and relationships, those kind of things there that can have a much larger impact.
Yep, you plan for the big ones, but not the mosquito will come and take you out.
Yeah. When I shared these to my wife, she said that my fun facts were much too depressing. So hopefully you have an uplifting one.
Well, when she listened, she's like, thank God Melissa came with others.
Yeah.
All right. My next one. All right. What's veggie?
Okay.
It's customary to be eaten in the UK for Christmas. Green beans, Brussels sprouts, red cabbage.
I mean, Charles Dickens didn't mention any of these in A Christmas Carol. So I apologize in advance to our British listeners, but I don't necessarily think of UK cuisine as the most tasty, and I dislike red cabbage the most, so I'm going with red cabbage.
No, it was Brussels sprouts.
Also disgusting, so that fits.
Yes. They do Brussels sprouts. I was like, I wonder why. And they call them Brussels. Brussels, yeah. I was like, I never would have thought of that.
Who knew? Okay. So the next one I was thinking about just like some of the entertainment that our students are engaging with, and not just students really. And I was surprised to learn that the gaming industry generates more revenue than the movie industry and music industry combined.
I could see that.
Yeah.
If it's still looking at our young people, I could.
And it is just like overall too.
Yeah.
Like this was one that just didn't, and it's not particularly close. Like 2021, the gaming industry was 180 billion, about half for mobile, half for like PC and consoles. Whereas music has been creeping up recently. It's up to like 26 billion. Movies, I had to look to pre-pandemic because that's not really fair, and topping out like 40 billion. So really, that's almost like, I don't know, a third of the combined revenue, which is something that like I didn't take those numbers with a grain of salt. There's a lot of kind of variables there. But yeah, it was like 2012, 2013 that the gaming industry overtook movies. In my head, because I think we all kind of like hold on to our earlier memories and a kind of perception of how the world works. So I've always thought like, oh, gaming industry is small just for a few people. Movie industry is much larger. And I think that was kind of a paradigm shift that I haven't quite wrapped my head around. And think about like in schools in terms of like what our students are engaging with content, but also even just what do we consider art and what are we teaching in terms of like, are we thinking of games?
But, just now I was thinking, so I was asking you, do they just mean young people? But as you were giving that explanation, I'm thinking, well, Mellisa, you play games, right? I mean, I try to play Wordle every morning.
Yeah.
So that's part of the gaming. And I have another game that I play with some other adult friends, which I would not have recently done. So I'm just like, I too, since then, have increased my gaming, right? So I typically think of, games for young people. But no, I do know a lot of adults, myself now included, that we are also playing games. I was just like, okay, all right.
Yeah, but I thought that was interesting.
All right. What are the top 3 gifts given among adults at Christmas time?
Top 3. Fruitcake.
No.
Calendar. I'm bad at this. Just give me the answer.
Number 1 was candy and chocolate.
Okay. Flowers? No, that's not really flowers. I'm going to stop talking. Just
candy and chocolate. The next one was something homemade.
Okay.
And then the 3rd top gift was gift cards or money. I was surprised about the candy or chocolate. That one really, I was just like, really? Among adults? Feels kind of lazy. But
I feel bad that I got your 3 Musketeers gifts.
But it's like, I've done, I've gone and done that where you get the little mug with some candy in it. It's just like, you're right. You probably do that a lot. It's the kind of easy, grab along kind of quick gift.
Right,
I was just I could see how that can happen.
Okay. One last data gift, one last data fact. So, and this is going through our podcast data. So 93% of our listeners are in the United States. Which do you think is the second, which country finishes second?
Canada?
No, that's a reasonable guess, but Germany. Yeah, specifically around Hesse, which is like where Frankfurt is, and Bavaria is coming from Munich. I mean, my last name is Ziegler, so I don't know if they just connected there or something. But I
would not have guessed that one.
No, and even within the United States, 67% of the listeners are in North Carolina, but then that's a decent amount kind of outside of that. Do you have a guess for second most state?
Trying to think who we know and where have they been.
Well, actually, this might be the case.
Texas.
No, Washington State, not D.C.
Washington State. Oh.
Yeah. Was that from you? No.
But remember, we did have a colleague that moved. Maybe he was able to get all of his.
Maybe. So I'll say, listeners from Washington, Germany, wherever.
Thank you.
I want to know. Let me know. Contact us.
Yeah.
You can reach us at www.wcpss.net/datalit, and we do have a form there where you can send us a message. I would love to know where, how our German listeners came to find us. So anyone outside of really Wake County schools, let us know. Curious. And I did want to end with a sincere note of gratitude for our listeners, from Raleigh to Seattle to Munich. Just, at this point, we have over 50 episodes, over 5,000 downloads, and that has been a wonderful gift
to us.
For me. Yeah, that's wonderful. And thank you, Mellisa, for doing this with me throughout the years.
Oh, thank you for keeping me grounded.
Yeah. And thank you to the for our German listeners, I'll say our uber talented Eva Indy Ziegler for the theme music, the singing there. This is going to wrap up our shows for 2023, but we will be back in January with a new set of episodes coming your way.
Okay.
So thank you, listeners. Happy holidays.
Have a good holiday. Bye.
Data.